Commissioner Barron, right now the United States has restarted negotiations with Saudi Arabia on nuclear cooperation. Both during the campaign, it turns out, and after becoming Trump's national security advisor, General Flynn was seeking to begin that process. So far, the administration has refused to meet the legal requirement to keep Congress fully and currently informed of any initiative and negotiations relating to a new and amended agreement as required by the Atomic Energy Act. Last week, Trump's Energy Secretary Rick Perry visited Saudi Arabia to discuss their bids to build new nuclear reactors. It has been reported that these deals may allow for enrichment of uranium, which all previous U.S. agreements have prohibited. The NRC has oversight responsibility over the export of nuclear source materials and technology. Has the NRC been consulted on the export of these potentially sensitive nuclear technologies?
So, as part of the 123 agreement process, NRC, as you mentioned, has a role. It comes later in the process when there are certain statutory findings the Commission must make in order for a 123 agreement recommendation to go to the President. We aren't at that stage yet.
So if the agreement does allow for the enrichment of uranium or reprocessing of plutonium, do you think that could pose a proliferation and safety risk?
Well, it's challenging to answer that question without having any sense of what's actually agreed to there. I know that.
Well, let me ask it another way. Does a country need to be able to enrich or reprocess in order to have a civilian nuclear power program, or can they bring the uranium in from?
Yeah, no, it's not necessary.
Not necessary. Okay, great. Thank you. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission staff granted the Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station an exemption from the requirement that a seismic probabilistic risk assessment be performed. This is a great concern since Pilgrim saw a bigger increase in seismic risk during its post-Fukushima hazard reevaluation than any other nuclear power plant. The reevaluation found that Pilgrim has a seismic hazard that is significantly higher than the plant was designed to withstand. Seismic assessments are very important. These are used to evaluate how safe nuclear sites are from earthquakes and can be used to determine what improvements and changes need to be made to protect the sites and surrounding communities from disaster. Commissioner Barron, while the NRC staff decided the Pilgrim is not required to do this assessment, do you think that station should voluntarily perform a seismic analysis?
I think this was, as you mentioned, a staff decision. I think the staff in this case made the wrong decision. Given the particular set of circumstances at Pilgrim, I think NRC should have required the detailed seismic risk assessment that would have been completed by the end of the year.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that's the position the NRC should be taking. Since 2015, Pilgrim has been assessed as having multiple repetitive operational safety violations. Mr. Barron, the NRC is currently undertaking a rulemaking to govern the decommissioning of plants. As Pilgrim moves towards decommissioning in 2019, is there any insight that you can provide as to how that rulemaking will take operational and physical safety into account?
Well, you know, with regard to Pilgrim, it may be that the rulemaking is complete prior to or after Pilgrim has already shut down, so it may not be directly applicable to Pilgrim, depending on what the ultimate timing is. I think the staff is aiming to complete a rulemaking package for a draft final rule for Commission review by the end of 2019. But I think it's, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, I think it's going to be a very good move to move away from this exemption, regulation by exemption approach that we currently have going on. I think it makes sense to have, like as we do for operating plants, a detailed list of the regulatory requirements, safety and security requirements that apply to a permanently defueled decommissioning plant. We don't have that right now. This rulemaking would accomplish that, and I think that's a good...
Yeah, and I think it's imperative that the new rules on decommissioning emphasize operational and physical safety long after these plants have stopped generating electricity. And I might just say about the state of this industry, obviously Westinghouse went bankrupt while trying to complete the local plant. And that's not because of any attempts by granola chomping, tree hugging liberals to stop the construction of that plant. It had nothing to do with it. It had to do with the very fact that it's very hard and very expensive to build nuclear power plants that are safe, and they're under tremendous pressure, obviously, from the wind and the solar industry, which is why there's an attempt by the fans of all these alternative energy generating sources to take away the benefits for those competing sources of energy. And I might just say, in response to the gentleman from Oklahoma, when he talked about the war and the Obama administration on coal, gas, and oil, that there was a dramatic, historic rise in oil and natural gas production during the Obama administration. Dramatic rise. And amongst other things, then the drop in the price of natural gas is what has led to, along with wind and solar, the very difficult economic conditions within which the nuclear power industry is trying to survive. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator.